You are listening to the Toxic Mold Podcast with Steve Worsley, the toxic mold expert and your number one source for mold consulting and mitigation in the USA. Let's dive into a brand new episode. Before we get started on this episode, here's a not so short disclaimer. While all attempts have been made to verify the content provided in this podcast, neither the podcaster or the producers assume any responsibility for errors, omissions, or alternative interpretations of the issues discussed here. All information stated in this podcast is the opinion of Steve Worsley. Steve Worsley is a mold specialist with over 25 years of experience in the construction and mold industry. The Toxic Mold Podcast is for information sharing purposes only. The views expressed are those of the podcaster and his alone. These views should not be taken as expert instruction or commands. While there may be references to medical conditions and symptoms, all podcast episodes are the opinion of Steve Worsley, and any medical questions or concerns shall be addressed with the appropriate licensed medical professional or professionals. As the podcaster refers to different mold types, please be aware that Steve Worsley is not a microbiologist, and questions concerning mold specifics should be answered by the appropriate professional. Steve isn't, nor does he offer any legal advice. For any legal advice, you must speak with a lawyer. The listener is 100% responsible for his or her own actions. You can check out Steve's books on Amazon. Just go to Amazon and search for author Steve Worsley. You can also take Steve's courses on Udemy or Skillshare, and you can find out more about those at cnccontractorservices.com. Now, let's get to the episode.
Hello, you're listening to the Toxic Mold Podcast with myself, Steve Worsley. Today we are on episode 183. Hope all of you are doing well. We're starting to get into the winter months, so hope all of you are staying safe and doing well. So today's topic is something that we deal with year-round, but a lot of time about this time of year we start dealing with colds. So the title is it a seasonal cold or is it mold sickness? A lot of people can confuse the two, and it's easily confused. You know, we did a podcast several weeks ago about, you know, can common mold types make you sick? So a lot of the things we covered there are a little bit similar in this, but obviously the big difference is, you know, is it a cold or is it mold sickness? And it's hard to tell the difference, especially, you know, since a lot of the symptoms are very similar. You know, if you have a cold, usually you've got a fever and watery eyes and runny nose, a cough, you know, you could be sneezing, very similar. There are things though with the cold that you don't have that you typically would have with mold exposure and mold sickness. You know, sometimes you get like red eyes with a cold, but typically you don't have something like that. The biggest, and this is just my opinion, the biggest way you can tell the difference is, you know, a common cold, you can feel it coming on. You know, you kind of feel, you wake up for a few mornings in a row and you have a sore throat. And then finally, you know, the third day, you've got full blown, you know, a nasal drip, you got a cough, you have all sorts of things going on. And so you can kind of tell, yeah, that's cold. Mold sickness, I'm not going to say it doesn't, there are no symptoms that lead to severe mold sickness. For the most part, your symptoms are gonna hit you at once. And I'm not saying it's always that way, so don't just hear that and go, well, you know, it's not mold sickness because I feel worse today than I did a week ago. Mold sickness can obviously get worse over time, but it's not as scheduled, I guess, as a cold is. So that's how you can tell. And obviously a cold should go away, you know, after, I don't know, I'm not a doctor, but after a week, you should be feeling better, 10 days, however long. I know if it's COVID, obviously it takes a lot longer to recover from that, but you should recover with a cold within 10 days, I would imagine. Another thing too, that you can really tell the difference is with a cold, it's that 10 days. You can take antibiotics and, you know, it depends. I guess I shouldn't say take antibiotics. Depends on if it's viral. But, you know, usually whatever you have, if it's a cold, there are medications that could, you know, make those symptoms go away. I'm not saying with mold sickness you can't. With mold sickness, there are medications you can take. I mean, you can take antihistamines, you know, if it's more of an allergy reaction. If it's, you know, more of a severe mold sickness and you're being exposed to a lot of mold, and, you know, once again, it doesn't have to be toxic mold, Stachybotrys, when I say that, to make you sick. But if you are exposed to things like Stachybotrys and high levels of any mold types, you know, taking medications might lessen the symptoms, but it's not gonna make it go away, especially if you're still exposed to it. So that's the best way to tell, you know, how long does it last? You know, did I take antibiotics and my doctor diagnosed me with whatever? Let's just say it's, you know, strep. It's not even a cold, it's strep, and I took antibiotics. He put me on a Z-Pak, and I'm still sick. That's when it, to me, would be a pretty clear sign that it's mold sickness, and it's not just something, you know, like a seasonal cold. Another thing, too, that you have to keep in mind is, and I talk about this often, not all doctors are trained, nor do they believe that mold can make you sick. So you have to be really careful as to what type of doctors you're going to see. We've done plenty of episodes. You know, one of them I'm sure is titled, you know, what kind of doctor can I go to for mold? Typically functional medicine doctors are your best bet. Allergy doctors are obviously more for if you have an allergy to molds. But the best experiences I've had with my clients are functional medicine doctors. So I know, you know, if you live in a rural place, it's tougher to find one. If you live in, you know, somewhere like LA, it's probably a lot easier to find than it would be in somewhere like Wyoming. So my point is with the doctor is make sure that you have a doctor that isn't going to poo-poo away anything with mold. Because if you say to your doctor, hey, doc, you know, I had an experience in the past, or a friend or somebody, family member, you know, they had mold issues and it took forever for them to get diagnosed. And finally, when they went to the right doctor, they went through the detox process. They removed themselves from the mold and they felt way better. If you say that to your doc and the doc is like, hey, mold's natural, you don't need to worry about that. I would question whether you're seeing the right doctor. I'm not saying it's a bad doctor. It's just not a right fit for you. It's no different than what I do, you know, with CNC contractor services. There's some clients that are just not the right fit for me. And I'm clear with them, like, hey, you know, just, you need somebody that's gonna, you know, do what you want them to do and believe what you're believing. So if your doctor's not on board with any of this, it's time to see another one. And I know, once again, I get it, because I can already hear you saying, well, yeah, it's easier said than done. I can't find any. And it is tough. Because, you know, a lot of the doctors that specialize in mold, a lot of them are getting certified through a certain doctor, and that doctor believes in the Ermi and Hertzme testing. And that's something that I know you listeners know this, if you've listened enough. One of our top episodes is what's the difference between Ermi and Hertzme testing and traditional testing. And I'm not a fan of that. So be careful with that too. So I don't want to sound like you can't find the right doctor. There's definitely plenty of them out there. I don't recommend any doctors, just like with mold inspectors or mold testers, mold mitigation. I just don't do it because you could have a great experience with a doctor, and then I could have another client that has a terrible experience. And if I recommended the doctor, it somewhat reflects on me. So that's why I don't go down that road. It's just, something I choose not to dabble in. But make sure you do have a doctor that's on board with you. So the next question would be, well, what can you do to know for sure that it is mold sickness? Well, the best way to do that is you get the right doctor, and then you do mycotoxin testing. And that would involve, and once again, I'm not a physician, so I'm not giving medical advice, but that would involve stuff like urine testing and blood testing. Once you've had mycotoxin testing done, some doctors think that urine testing is not the way to go. It's got to be blood, vice versa. That's all. I don't get into that part of it. But once you've done all that, we can actually, from our side, and you'll hear me refer to it as the blue collar side, meaning from the actual mold side of it in the home, we can look at the mycotoxin testing results, and we can look at our air testing or our whatever type of testing we're doing, which is typically air with other things like tape lifts. We can say, hey, yeah, we had really high counts of this mold type. This mold type is associated with this mycotoxin. We can correlate the two and say, okay, that's what it's from. So, it is important to kind of not get sidetracked a little bit, but it is important that you do more than just the medical side of things, because if you just do, and I tell you guys this all the time, and I tell my clients very often, you can't just do air testing and expect me to know what's going on. It's just, we have to have the inspection, which I don't do standalone testing. If it's our company that does it, we have to do an inspection with it. So, we need the inspection just to see the property conditions. We need the air testing along with tape lifts and swabs or whatever we decide to test, or methods of testing. And then we need the medical side. So keep that in mind. And that's where mold, it's so complex, and I understand it can get very expensive. And that's what's tough. I really believe, that's when my first book, The Mold Epidemic, was written. I believe we have an epidemic of it because of the way homes are built these days, the building materials, the VOCs we have, and the fact that it's really expensive. And, a lot of people really believe in mold sickness and mold exposure, but some people don't. So it's it's a tough road to go down. So that's how you can tell, is with mycotoxin testing. Another question I get all the time is, so what do you do after you find out you're sick from mold? First and foremost, if you ever think that anybody in your home is sick from mold, or at work, wherever it's at, you have to remove yourself from that moldy environment. Some people call it a moldy home. I just would say a moldy environment, but you have to. And I know it's a tough thing to do, but if you're getting sick from it, if you have an RV trailer, travel trailer, your parents, some relatives that you can go stay with, you need to remove yourself from that home, and you need to start the detox process. I'm not going to go into the detox process. There are episodes where we talk about that, but you do need to go through those steps. So I know we kind of got off on the whole, if you find out that it is making you sick, but it's a very important subject. So, another thing you do need to do to, once again, determine whether it's a seasonal cold or if it's mold sickness, you're going to have to hire a mold specialist. Now, that I'm not saying it has to be me, but it needs to be somebody that is knowledgeable, that is open to different situations, different outcomes. I'm not the type that I'm just going to say, yep, it's this, yep, you passed, or no, you're good, no, you failed. It's just, I'm not myopic when it comes to that. So you need to find somebody that's really open to, like I said, different scenarios and different results, because every case with mold is unique. Everyone. It's just like patients in a doctor's office. You're all unique. You all have different things in your body going on. So that's how you got to approach it. So make sure you get the right inspector, and then make sure you get the right doctor involved. So I like to always end these with our call to action. So what's our call to action? If you're sick, or you think you're sick from mold or from a seasonal cold, you need to start a journal. It's no different than, I remember, when I got sick with COVID. I wrote things in a journal because I wanted everything documented so that I could tell it wasn't just a normal cold or flu. So make sure that you have a journal and you're writing things down, because once you hire, whether you go to your doctor's office or you hire a mold specialist, if you don't have that information, it's really tough for us to come to our conclusions, because if you don't know anything, it's hard for us to know anything. So write a journal. Another great thing that we have that I've done is I have created a free course. It's on Skillshare, or actually it's not on Skillshare, my bad. It's on Udemy, and it's free. And it's Is Toxic Mold Making Me Sick? It's a completely free course. It's not we leave it free for a promotional period. It's completely free. It's something I think is important for my clients and for everybody to know whether it's toxic mold that's making you sick. So you can go to Udemy. You can take that course. I do have other courses on Udemy and Skillshare. So, if you want to take a paid course, you can do that too. But if you do want to take a paid course, reach out to info@cnccontractorservices.com. We can actually get you promo codes for Skillshare, or it's Udemy, I think is how it's pronounced, but I call it Udemy. So once again, I appreciate all of you guys listening, and today was episode 183. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Make sure you go to our website at cnccontractorservices.com and sign up for the mold investigation checklist. Again, go to cnccontractorservices.com and get your free mold investigation checklist today. You can also, on cnccontractorservices.com, find out more about Steve's courses and books and consultations. Once again, go to cnccontractorservices.com.